This conference will now be recorded.
You want to log off?
Awesome. Okay, so I want to welcome everybody to really our first FIT webinar, and in this webinar we're going to talk a little bit about what evidence-based is, what does that mean, and how does FIT fit into this. I'm going to be the facilitator. My name is John Woods, and tell you a little bit about myself. I spent 30 years in the Air Force and did weapons training and weapons acquisition. And after I retired in 2007, I went and became a certified middle school and high school teacher here in Florida. Taught an alternative school for at-risk youth for 5 years. Moved over to the Children's Home Society doing tutoring and setting up educational programs for high school youth, and then went back and got my doctorate in education at the University of West Florida, and now I work at Pensacola State College helping military veterans prepare for college. So that's a little bit about my background. Gary, will you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. Good morning. I'm Gary Ensign. For 35 years, I was a teacher, curriculum developer, and administrator in various colleges and universities. In those positions, I was involved in taking university courses into prisons and also in training correctional officers. When I retired 20 years ago, I began service as a volunteer with the Good News Jail and Prison Ministry in a large county jail. And for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been a facilitator of FIT courses in 2 state prisons.
All right, Gary, thank you very much. Don, tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you'd also give us a little history of the FIT program. Don, are you still with us? Okay, we lost one of our main presenters. So we'll go ahead and see if we can get Don back on. I don't know what's the problem. See if I can call him.
John? John? John,
hey, Don, you're not. Yeah.
He's having trouble. He got knocked off.
Okay. What we may do, since it's just us on here, we may have to all log off and then log back on. Well, yeah, Gary, that may be a problem for you, right?
Hang in there, Gary.
Well,
I'll give it a try.
Here's the thing. I think if Don logs off, I think everybody gets logged off.
Well,
okay.
There may be a chance that it won't, because.
Okay. All right. So see if Don will log off and then log back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like we're still here. We actually practice this, guys.
Our dry run last Saturday, they should have seen it. It was awesome. It was so good.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you record it?
No, we should.
When you know it, then you could just play it back. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's Beverly. That's not Beverly.
Beverly Shatterly.
Okay, yeah, I thought that was Betty from the office. No,
Oh.
no.
Yeah, she's up in North Carolina.
I'm here.
There you are.
I just turned myself off for a little while. I'm still here though.
Okay.
Okay, here comes Don.
All right.
Don Pratt has arrived. Beverly, if you'd do me a favor and just mute real quick. Thank you. All right, Don. Well, you want to do a test real quick? Testing? We can't hear you.
That's his son.
Yeah. He's got his mute on.
Can't hear you, Don.
Hey, this message on telephone.
Hello.
Oh,
There we-
gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, it wouldn't be fun if it didn't have problems, right?
Right.
So Don, if you would tell us a little bit about yourself, and then also give us a little history of FIT.
Yes, I'm Don Pratt. I'm president of Family Integrity Training, and I've taught high school and middle school, every science subject, every math subject. I've always been in those two disciplines, and even in my PhD study, I was doing that and ended up teaching mostly at the University of Wyoming and Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania until I retired from there in 2004. And I had an interest in Christian ministry. I wasn't quite sure what that would be. When I came to Florida, almost immediately I met Ed White, who was working with the Department of Corrections when they were coming up with a faith-based opportunity for early release for prisoners. And so in about 2005, we started working on that and planning it. Originally, we were going to use other sources and piece together. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel. In the end, we had to reinvent the wheel because either the programs that we were looking at were too expensive, or there were copyright issues, or it didn't meet what we wanted to do. So we custom made and developed over the years the program as it exists today. We never stop. We never stop changing and updating and improving things, and we're probably more in that vein right now than we ever have been. So we have some new products coming out, and we're trying to keep up with the times and with the needs as we understand the population that we deal with.
All right. Thank you, Don. All right. So when we're looking at evidence-based, which is terms that a lot of us have heard thrown around recently, There are other terms that go along with that. One of them is proven to work. You may hear that in a program. Research-based programs are often discussed. And then empirical evidence or data-driven type of programs. So in Florida, back in December of 2003, Governor Jeb Bush looked at ways to bring faith and character into the Correctional Institute. So he dedicated Lottie Correctional Institute as the first faith and character-based prison. And in doing so, he looked at what is the mission, what is the purpose behind faith and character-based programs? What are they going to do for inmates? He looked at build moral character, bring up their moral character, make them better individuals, and then develop some spiritual resources, bring in programs, bring in things that will help the inmates to grow spiritually, not necessarily one particular faith, but have some spiritual foundation there. And then allow them to acquire life skills that basically lead to pro-social behavior, better behavior out in the community, as well as in the prison itself. So that way, when they are released, they're a productive citizen for society. So that's what Governor Bush was looking for in the faith and character-based prison programs. So some examples that we have of evidence-based would be scientifically based. This is where they actually do maybe an experiment. They go through and they look at groups, and they do statistical studies, which when it comes to the Correctional Institute environment, those are very hard to prove in that type of setting in the prison itself, because of all the things that go along with that, of having control groups, and so that much more difficult. Then you also have case studies. That's where you go look at a particular place, a particular environment, and you actually do a study of the improvement. You look at it before things were implemented, then when intervention or a program was implemented, and then look at it after the program was implemented, and you compare them. You determine, did the intervention or did the program make any change, make any difference in the behavior of the individuals. There are also reports out there by experts, criminologists, that you can go online and you can read. We'll show you a few at the end as far as articles that we researched. And then one of the biggest things that I think is part of evidence-based is the testimonies. The testimonies of the individuals that actually received the program or participated in the program, received the intervention. So looking at two of the programs that are implemented here in Florida, Lottie Correctional Institute, which is a male prison, and Hillsborough, which is a female prison. Justice Policy Center in Washington, D.C., they conducted a study at Lottie and Hillsborough. Some of the results that they found were, with few exceptions, the staff, management, chaplains, volunteers, and then the inmates themselves said that faith and character-based model do change inmates' lives. It can change their lives. It creates a safer environment, friendlier facilities, and improves the possibility of the individual re-entering society successfully. So we look at all these things when it comes to your faith and character-based, and FIT is part of that. FIT is a program that's part of that. So what I'd like is, Gary, talk a little bit about FIT, the strengths of FIT, and some other aspects.
Well, when we look at the strengths of the FIT program, we have basically three primary strengths. It's specifically designed to be used in the Florida State prison system using their criteria. It's evidence-based. It has strategies that speak to that as well as faith-based. We'll first look at FIT as being specifically designed to address Florida's evidence-based criteria. Want to go to the next slide? The criteria that we use was designed to be applied in the prison system, and FIT matches FDOC's evidence-based criteria that identifies criminogenic factors that show causal relationships between criminal and delinquent behavior. Research studies and experience indicate that these crime-producing risk factors can be reduced and even changed. And given the Florida Department of Corrections' concern regarding inmate behavior, both while incarcerated as well as when released, DOC has identified 7 areas for focusing inmate rehabilitation and recidivism reduction efforts. The FIT program overlays very much like a matrix the criminogenic risk factors. And there are 7 of those factors, each of which is addressed either in several or in one of the FIT programs. The first risk factor area is social awareness. FIT programs address risky antisocial behavior and pro-social interaction, anger management, problem solving, coping skills. The second risk factor is criminal associates. FIT deals with self-management, decreasing association with friends and acquaintances that practice antisocial behavior, and individual role in peer associations and the effects and consequences in encouraging pro-social activities. The third risk factor is criminal thinking and attitudes. It deals with changing reasoning and perception, deals with examining and identifying thinking errors and triggers of criminal thinking. Likewise, it deals with areas to practice expanding thinking, to develop empathy, and to increase social, pro-social thinking. Fourth risk area is family and marital relations. Of course, FIT deals with reducing familial conflict, strengthening family relationships, parenting skills, and taking responsibility for dependent children. The fifth DOC area of risk is employment and education. And FIT addresses encouraging academic and vocational program attendance and achievement, and searching, preparing for, and applying for a job, and keeping a job, and managing money. A major area of concern by DOC and society is substance abuse. And FIT deals with that by recognizing maladaptive and antisocial patterns of substance abuse and providing tools to recognize and abstain and or control these. And the final 7th area is leisure and recreation, participation in pro-social activities and pastimes, and promoting wellness and healthy community living. Next slide. Evidence-based strategies used in FIT instruction are based on constructivism, which is a learning theory that is involved in actively, not passively, engaging learners. This includes small group dynamic interaction. And this enables the individuals to practice these new skills and behaviors. Examples are generated and come from the group itself. Inmates are encouraged to use prior experiences to help them form and reform knowledge, meaning, and understanding. And therefore, material is relevant to the group. FIT facilitators do a lot of listening to participants, where they're coming from, what they're saying, and the tone in which they say it. And FIT provides role models who are living the life we propose. FIT provides comprehensive life skills through separate standalone courses. Next slide. But in addition to these evidence-based strategies, the FIT program also includes faith-based strategies. FIT connects inmates to spiritual resources by working with chaplains to provide Bible study and nurturing, to provide a blueprint for successful and purposeful living, and by providing strength and guidance from God's Word. All the FIT program material, the participant guides, have Bible passages for the participants to not only read, but more importantly, to discuss and to apply. It also provides connection to positive social environments, to encourage positive friendships and good role models, and by encouraging a safe place away from destructive influences. Next slide. But obviously, FIT also faces a number of challenges. First of all, we can observe what goes on in the classroom, but we can't observe what goes on outside of the classroom. The post-release follow-up opportunities that FIT has to assess its effectiveness extremely limited. And we are also very limited when it comes access to agency DOC data. So this limits our ability to determine, in many respects, how effective we really are. But on the other side of that, the very nature of proven strategies go far beyond what happens in class or in an educational setting. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But most of our clients have multiple and extensive handicaps to overcome in their change in lifestyle. Some of these are mental illness, low social economic status, a variety of addictions, basing much of the behavior on poor role models, and too much association with criminals and street thinking.
All right, thank you, Gary. So when we look at the FIT program itself, really what we're talking about is changing lives and changing directions of individuals. And so their experience is a big part of what FIT does. Does experience have a role in evidence-based programs? Well, the simple answer is yes, it does, because that's what we're about, changing lives. One study talked about that evidence-based practices is essentially a practice. It's something you do. It involves people taking action in their own environment, in their own realities, developing experience, questioning and nudging and problem solving, and those are all things that FIT incorporates into their courses. The FIT curriculum aids in moving individuals from negative behavior, antisocial behavior and experience toward more positive, more productive experiences. And we do this by recognizing and helping the inmate recognize their reality. Also, we help them to confront any negative behavior that they have had and currently have, acknowledging the need for change. They have to want to change. They have to take ownership of that, and then learn positive, productive behaviors. And then they also have to have a willingness to internalize those positive experiences and accept them as the new you, if you will. And we help change attitudes and changing attitudes change action. So how do we do this? How do we do this in class? Well, the first thing is, and Gary talked a little bit about this, we listen. So as a facilitator, one of my primary responsibilities is to listen. Listen to what the inmate is saying. And our examples that we use come from the inmates themselves. So they're not something that we made up. They're something that they experienced. And they're real life examples. This really happened to them. We create a friendly, safe atmosphere for discussion. It's a safe place. And we say that you can come here and you can discuss things. And what is said here stays here. We use role playing as a method to be able to help them learn. And we make the information and the lessons relevant to the inmate. As a teacher, I understand how important it is to make the information relevant to your students. As a fit facilitator, that still applies. Then we challenge the inmate's thinking. Stinking thinking leads to stinking behavior. Positive thinking leads to positive behavior. So one of the ways that I do it in class or in the course, for example, in the practical parenting course, I will make sure that each individual has an opportunity to share and provide those examples that have happened to them. I may have some discussion between the inmates as allowing one individual to respond to another person's situation if they've experienced that before, and talk about how they got through it. Gary, what's some of the things that you do in your courses to be able to bring the fit alive and relevant to the inmates?
Well, certainly in the first lesson of the practical parenting course, it's called Watch Your Mouth. And we know in terms of scripture, Jesus taught about what comes out of the mouth really comes out of the heart. Most of the inmates, when they come in at the beginning of a course, they're bringing with them a lot of baggage on forgiveness, resentment, past parenting failures, a hopelessness that it's too late for them in their relationship with children, some of whom are adult children. And through the examples in the participant guide, but more importantly, as John expressed, through the sharing of the group, it gives them an opportunity to shape the discussion and to begin to share. And as they begin to share, they begin to develop an understanding that the concept of forgiveness is a continuing concept. It's key to the spiritual and character building development, and it touches all areas of their lives. That gives, at least right in the beginning, an opportunity for some of the individuals to open up and express their concerns. As they do this, they begin to share with one another how they would approach certain problems. How do you reconnect with a child that you haven't had contact with because you've been incarcerated maybe 6 months, maybe 6 years, maybe 16 years? And it's amazing how creative the class is as a group to come up with suggestions. One of the individuals in a recent parenting class took some of those advices, decided to sit down and write a letter that really bared his heart. He sent it to his 4 adult children, 2 of whom responded almost within a week or 2 of receiving that. A third one responded within a month. The last time I had contact with him, he was beginning to reconnect with the 4th one. This is how it works. It is experience-based. It is faith-based.
Thank you, Gary. Don, how do you handle that in your courses as far as the Practical Parenting course, Chapter 1?
Okay, again, the title of the lesson is Watch Your Mouth. I'm often asked, all right, what silver bullet do you have that this course of yours is going to solve all the problems of the world, so to speak, to exaggerate, to make a point. And I say, well, there are limitations that any course would have. But here's what I'm saying. These people come growing up mostly with put down statements as they were growing up. They think that they're black sheep of the family and so on and so forth. And so they have these terrible things that they say to their children. And so I figured that if I can give them 1 2-hour lesson about how to clean up their how they talk to one another and to their children, that's pretty good accomplishment for a 2-hour session, especially if it lasts for the rest of their lives. And it's almost universal that watching your mouth is a big problem that a lot of people have.
Thank you, Don. So you've heard about how we use these principles and we use these techniques in the class. Let's hear from some other individuals that actually have been successful, some success stories. So Don, if you'll talk a little bit about these individuals that you've had experience with and that have been through the FIT courses and how it's changed their lives.
Well, okay, all 3 of these examples are people who have been living successfully for 10 years since their intervention with FIT. So in any case study, which is a valid research method, you have a pre-intervention study. You have an active intervention phase of it, and then the third would be a post to see if it changed. All right. First example is Melissa. Melissa was in jail locally here. She lost everything. She was an RN, lost her license for life, lost custody of her daughter, her car, possessions, everything. In jail, she went to our insight class because she was bored. And so FIT turned her life around. In Christian terminology, she gave her heart to the Lord there. And she also used the insight book to help with her addiction problems. Okay, so that was the pre-phase. The active intervention phase was she got out of jail, and in one night, she was baptized with other 9 members of her family in a single service. I think that's quite amazing. She became a FIT facilitator. She went back to college, got her social work degree because she couldn't go back to nursing. She got a full-time job in social work, was there for several years. And then she tried to reestablish herself as a nurse. So she had to go back to college. She got a Bachelor of Science in nursing degree and is now a practicing nurse. That isn't all. In this period, she got married to a wonderful Christian man. This is a lifestyle that she did not have before. And they recently celebrated 7 years of marriage. Now that's quite a feat in this society, even for 7 years. So for over 10 years, she's been a successful member of society and Christian service. Okay, that's my first example. Second example is her father, Paul. Her father, Paul, had a drinking problem. And so after Melissa, Paul is Melissa's father, after Melissa got out of jail, she took her insight book from her FIT class and said, here, I'd like you to read this book. I think it could help you. Now you can see his testimony on the front page of our website, where he gives a testimony of this. Now, Paul became a facilitator as well as did Melissa, and both of them served for many years. Paul still is, as much as he can. Now, the third example is a lady that was delivered from a life of sin and running from the law. I took part in marrying her present husband, and they've been married for over 10 years now. And I won't go into details, but this marriage was something that was not her focus before that. She lived in the woods with various partners in the early days, turned her life around through attending a church for the homeless people that we were working with, and FIT intervention. She eventually became a FIT facilitator herself.
Thank you, Don.
That's
Oh,
it.
go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
So we've talked about what evidence-based is. We've talked about a little bit about what Florida Department of Education or Corrections looks at, the different dimensions of criteria for what they want changed in an inmate and the risk areas that they've had. We've talked about testimony. We've talked about what FIT provides. Now we're going to look a little bit at what FIT is not. So Gary, tell us a little bit about what FIT is not.
Okay. We hope from our presentation that you have a better understanding that family integrity training is not an either or. It's not evidence-based or faith-based instruction. It's both. It's solidly both. And we hope from this webinar you understand that FIT is a very balanced program. Secondly, FIT is not a teacher-driven form of instruction. It's a facilitator guided, where groups and individuals learn by actively participating, by actively being engaged in what is discussed and coming up with solutions. The individuals learn problem solving with very practical, very down to earth, very difficult life choices. Also, I hope you understand that FIT isn't an inflexible, rigid, or lockstep program, nor is it a loose, unstructured, or does it lack standard. It's very balanced. The whole nature of the FIT program is to engage students in a manner in which they can learn and explore and develop. Therefore, FIT is not a single dimension method of instruction. Next. FIT is a multidimensional, holistic approach. It actively engages inmates in learning and practicing life skills to counter criminogenic risk factors that we've explained. The dimensions that we use to do this in the program are basically 6. It involves social aspects, inner action with others in culture, not just studying this, but actually engaging it. These men and women who are incarcerated live in a fishbowl 24/7. So social skills are very important. We also deal with emotional aspects, attitudes in their formation. Obviously, we deal with the mind and education, the intellect. And some may not realize how much we deal with the physical, with the health, really physical and mental health, and material needs like jobs and the environment. FIT is very much involved in the spiritual dimension of faith and beliefs and morals and values. But the last is perhaps the most critical, volitional. That's a big word to say that people have to make choices. FIT is about making the right choices.
Thank you, Gary. So in putting this presentation together, and we've talked a lot about the FIT program. We've talked about our experiences, how we handle and facilitate courses. We talked about the testimonies and the changed lives that have been brought about because of FIT and the interventions that have came about. But we also wanted to let you know that we also did some research. We looked at various articles. We looked at research that is out there. These are a number of articles and research that has been done on evidence-based, on faith-based programs, and we've mentioned some of them during this presentation. So we wanted everybody to know that this is not something that we just came up with. We didn't just make this stuff up. It actually is based on evidence, hard empirical evidence, so that you can look these up. And I know this presentation is going to be provided to all of you. So with that, does anybody have any questions or answers? You can go ahead, or any questions, and we'll provide the answers. You can go ahead and unmute your mics, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. John, Beverly?
I haven't got any questions.
Maybe
We did that good a job.
That's it.
Maybe while they're coming online and thinking of their questions, let me introduce Chris Christensen, who is a neighbor of mine, but he's also a FIT facilitator at Taylor. And while we talk about facilitators and we talk about volunteers going in, Chris has been very much involved in a group of men who have become peer facilitators, peer trainers at the correctional institution. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, one of the benefits that we've received is that we've been locked out of Taylor. We got locked out in March. We were back in again for 3 weeks in July, and then got locked out again since then. But yet at the same time, we now have qualified 13 peer facilitators at Taylor, not only in English, but also in Spanish. And so they are doing 3 Spanish courses and all 8 of the English courses. And Don, I just, 2 weeks ago, I sent in some more certificates that they're still doing courses in the dorms. Excuse me. Even though they were not allowed to go up to the chapel, they, at Taylor, we have 2 72-person faith-based and character-based dorms. And they are doing courses in the dorms, and as new men are being transferred into those dorms, they are coming into the program. So the last group that we got certificates for, 11 of the 12 were men that we have not seen before, personally in the program. They're brand new members in the program. I know we've touched base with over 300 and some odd inmates in that institute, in that facility. The warden thought so highly of what was happening in the main that he opened the program up to the annex. And sadly, we don't have any trained facilitators in the annex to do the same thing right now. But just recently, in fact, Thursday of this week, I found out that Taylor has opened back up to a point, and they're still very leery about volunteers coming in, but they're looking forward to getting it opened up again. I will make a suggestion in the finance course. When you get to job interviews, what I have done, because I was running a management skills program for the U.S. Navy for 4 years in Jacksonville, Florida, part of a team of 7 chief petty officers throughout the East Coast. And we did a lot of secular, no faith-based at all, but secular programs. And we learned that an actual role play of a job interview is very, very valuable. So I've included that in all of our finance courses. That I think it's lesson 7, I believe. I can't think of it directly, but in lesson 7, I actually, during the first 6 lessons, I actually look for a student in the class, and I pick up that he has been in small business himself. In the last case was a plumber, and I turn around and lesson 5, I get him aside and I say, I'd like to turn around and do a role play with you next week. And what I'm going to do is I am going to be the candidate. You're going to be the employer. And we're going to turn around and do it for the whole class. We're going to take 10 minutes and we're going to do it twice. And the first time I come in, I'm going to come in with my shirt undone and all that, put my foot over the top of the chair, say, hey, boss, what you doing? All this. Don't even ask his name and all that. I do the bad way that we've talked about through the first 5 lessons. And then after that, I come back in with my tie on, presented, introduce myself, and do it all through. And it really it brings home that whole financial aspect of your presentation. Who are you? The confidence you come in with. And they really appreciated that in that. So that may be something to think about in the future to put into the finance course when you get to that aspect of how do you actually present yourself. But thank you very much.
Good info. That's awesome.
I've also had the opportunity of bringing my wife into the program. I've been doing this at Taylor now, started in Mayo, and then I moved over to Taylor. We brought it into Taylor as a brand new program. And Taylor now has, like I said, they've got a faith and character-based dorm of 72 men. And then because they had graduates and they were trying to do others, the warden there petitioned the state and got what they call an honors dorm. So E1 is a faith-based dorm, E2 is an honors dorm. And they're both 72 men, open bay dorms. And been very, very effective. And the warden is extremely happy with how things are going. And we are very, very much welcomed and really enjoy the relationship down there.
That's awesome.
I will give credit where credit's due, and specifically to Chaplain Don Sheets, who is the senior chaplain there, and he vets all of his men. He knows exactly who we're getting. We know who we're getting before we get them, and who people in the courses and so forth, and extremely supportive of our program, and has really appreciated it and worked very well with us. And I know Don, he's communicated with you a couple of times, and but it's been a very worthwhile program and very enriching to my wife and I both. So thank you. And I want to say one last thing. Don, we appreciate Betty. She's fantastic in the office.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass that on.
Well, I very much,
John, Beverly, you guys got anything?
very much appreciate all that FIT has been doing. I do see the evidence-based results in the work that I was doing there as well. Also, people that have gotten out and now have been out successfully for many, many years. I'd like to see this spread in other areas. Could you tell us what we need to do so that we can get links and promote this in other areas? Like I'm in North Carolina now, and I'd like to share this with some of the local officials here.
Let me comment on that. One of the things that Don had put together was a presentation to DOC, and he presents the matrix for the FIT courses over the criminogenic risk factors. Those are not unique to Florida. They were developed in the late 90s by a group, a national group that was studying crime and juvenile delinquency. So I would suspect your North Carolina correctional people would be aware of those and may in fact be using them. But there's a very close tie between those if they're serious about working on rehabilitation and recidivism.
Also, what applies to prisons applies to jails too.
Yes,
Because there are more people in jail than there are in prison.
right.
Yeah.
One of the areas that the new superintendent of corrections here, Mark Inch, supposedly is working on it over the next 4 or 5 years, is to connect community religious groups, volunteers, not just with the prisons, but also with the parole individuals. So Chris and I are looking at, in the new year, making contacts with the regional correctional service, because they have a group of courses that they use very, very similar to the FIT program.
Good. John, you got anything? Any input?
Yeah, we have used the FIT courses in the Dream Center in Lakeland for about 5 years. And we found that it's a very good benefit there as well.
What programs do you have that work in the jails, being that they're just in there for a short time versus the prisons?
That's it.
I'd like to respond to that. Many times they're not in jail for a short time. Jail is, in Florida at least, is supposed to have a 1-year limit. So for the serious crimes, they'll be in there for 1 year. But for the serious crimes, something else happens. Their trials are put off for sometimes a year, sometimes 2. So they're in there a long time, many times over a year, sometimes up to 2 years. We were told at the very beginning that jails were not set up for the long term, they're not set up for education and so forth, and it wouldn't work in jails. We found that not to be true. In the early days, we had more graduates from the Sarasota County Jail than we had from any of the prisons. And there are other jails that were in the same category. So we're in jails, we're in prisons, we're in recovery houses, because we follow the inmate. The inmate goes through all 3 of these stages many times, the same inmates.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Well, if not, I want to thank everybody for attending this webinar, our first webinar. I know that since this is being recorded, Don will be sending the link to the recording out to the participants, and even make it available, I assume, on our website, to where individuals can go and click on it and watch the recording. But with that, again, I want to thank everybody. Thank Don and Gary for all their input into this. And I hope everybody has a great day.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Any final comments before we head out of here? Don, you can probably cut the recording off.